played football in Michigan. Big night.
All right, let's go ahead and get this started.
In fact, we're a sponsor.
Welcome to our council meeting. In the interest of time efficiency and ensuring that everyone who wishes to address the council is given the opportunity to do so, the following will apply to all comments made by the public. Each speaker shall be allotted 3 minutes to address the council, unless such time is extended by the mayor or by questions from the council. Groups shall designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition of comments. Every effort will be made to avoid interrupting speakers. Thank you for participating in your city government. So first, I'd like to announce Pastor Alden Whiteman from the Amazing Grace Baptist Church, who will be presenting the invocation. And please stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Councilmember Askew.
Almighty God, we're so grateful to be able to begin this meeting tonight in prayer. Thank you for our forefathers who loved this nation and had the forthright wisdom to give us a constitution, that we only have the freedoms that we have that other countries do not have, the freedom of self-determination to government. Thank you for these people, these men and women that are on the council, for their willingness to serve. Grant them wisdom and guidance through the meetings tonight throughout this year. Intercede, dear Lord, for those that's in the audience and for the citizens of St. Cloud. You would also help them to be cognizant of the needs of this city, the needs that we have that would bring glory and honor to each other and to you. We thank you, our Father, for our law enforcement, for our police, for our deputies, for even our highway patrol, to protect them and intercede for them and watch over them. Pray for our militaries around the country, put a hedge of safety about them. Precious Father, bless this meeting tonight. May things be done decently in order. Pray you encourage the ones that are here in the audience and give wisdom and guidance to our council. We ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. City Clerk, please call the roll call.
Mayor Blackwell, Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Here.
Councilmember Urban.
here.
Councilmember Askew.
Here.
Councilmember Trace.
Here.
City Manager, do you have any updates to the agenda?
Yes, Deputy Mayor. The presentation of Employee of the Month will be moved to May 12th. The employee had to go out of town unexpectedly. That's all the changes I have to the agenda.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have a proclamation in recognition of the National Historic Preservation Month. Christine Dalton, would you like to come up? Great. Whereas the National Trust for Historic Preservation established May as Historic Preservation Month in 1973 as a way to promote historic places for the purpose of instilling nation and community pride, promoting heritage tourism, and showing the social and economic benefits of historic preservation. And whereas Historic Preservation Month can instill awareness of the local historically significant buildings and landmarks to the residents of St. Cloud and surrounding communities, and whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability, and whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds, and whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people, and whereas the St. Cloud community continues to demonstrate its commitment to preservation as it grows and develops through ongoing historic resource surveys, the protection of its traditional neighborhoods, and the recognition, rehabilitation, and restoration of historic properties. Now therefore, I, Lynette Matheny, Deputy Mayor of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as Historic Preservation Month. Awesome. Would you like to say something?
Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Dalton. I am the Historic Preservation Consultant for the City of St. Cloud. And as we recognize St. Cloud, historic St. Cloud, I must say, with his Preservation Month, I want to make sure that we are recognizing the organizations and also the individuals that are making historic preservation possible in St. Cloud. So the first thing that I want to do is actually start with a shout out to city staff. The work that I do has been made much easier by the help that I've been given from staff, and the collaboration with City Hall has been amazing. Veronica Miller, Deputy City Manager. Stephanie Streeter is the Administrative Coordinator for the Historic Preservation Board. Melissa Dunklin in the Planning Department. And of course, anyone else that I've worked with here has been tremendous. The other groups I want to recognize, of course, are St. Cloud's Historic Preservation Board, which is a group of volunteer citizens that are giving of their time to review applications for what we call Certificate of Appropriateness, which are changes to historic structures. They're also looking at long-range planning for historic preservation and marketing of St. Cloud's historic resources. Another organization I want to recognize is St. Cloud Main Street. St. Cloud has one of the best Main Street groups in the state. I feel that they're a statewide model for the Main Street program, and they've been doing a lot of work when it comes to historic preservation in St. Cloud. The next organization I want to recognize is the St. Cloud Heritage Museum. Again, run by volunteers, and they've been doing incredible work. I'll talk about that in my presentation in a minute. And the last organization I want to recognize is the Osceola County History Museum. So without all these people pulling together in combined effort toward historic preservation, it would be really difficult to make strides, which actually I feel St. Cloud is making tremendous strides right now.
Awesome. Is there anybody you want to call
Yes,
up?
absolutely. So I'd like to have Paula Stark from St. Cloud Main Street. Member Tony Jones from St. Cloud Historic Preservation Board. Do you want to come up for the photo? Deputy City Manager Veronica Miller, Melissa Dunklin. Melissa's title is still Planning Manager. Community Development Director. And Melissa is the Community Development Director for the city. So.
Here, hold on. We got
Certificates for you guys.
Thank you so much.
Take it higher.
Okay, next up, we have a presentation regarding St. Cloud's Historic Preservation Update.
Okay, so we just recognized the Proclamation for Preservation Month, and I just wanted to go through a couple of notes here. Of course, my computer's choosing now to freeze. Bear with me one second. Okay, so Preservation Month is an opportunity to recognize contributions of local citizens and organizations to preservation efforts, so I just went into that. The next thing I want to talk about is HPB has really hit the ground running in 2022. It's been great. In January of 2022, HPB met and had an organizing meeting and basically mapped out all the projects and all the objectives that they want to achieve in 2022. Top on that list was education and marketing. They want to make sure that St. Cloud citizens are aware that there are historic districts, that there are is a process called Certificate of Appropriateness process that you have to go through when you have a historic building. And that's just kind of the regulatory administrative part. What we're also trying to do is make sure that citizens are aware of the different incentives that are actually around historic preservation. So with larger development projects, there's things like the federal rehabilitation tax credit that property owners can get. There's collaboration that we've also been doing with St. Cloud Economic Development. And things like that. So there's really been an objective to get this information out there. And to that end, the board has created a trifold brochure, which we are unveiling for the first time this evening. So I want to pass it out to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that brochure is going to be circulated through the community very soon. The second objective that HPB outlined for 2022 is the creation of design guidelines, and I've been working with the deputy city manager on that. But basically, at some point in 2022, the city will be working with a consultant to actually develop design criteria for the historic district. St. Cloud Historic Preservation Board is relatively new. It's less than a decade old. So you have what we kind of refer to as a starter ordinance. It doesn't have design guidelines in it. And that's how most historic districts and historic preservation boards start. But we're to the point right now where design guidelines really need to be looked at. And so that's a big objective. Another thing is creation of a local tax incentive program. So this would be something where if the city were to pass this, which so far looks like that will likely happen, that owners of historic properties will get a tax incentive for rehab of those historic properties, and they would work with the Historic Preservation Board to get that tax incentive. The other thing we want to do is an awards and plaque program, and so this would be for recognition of actually very well done historic rehab. So they could be commercial properties, they could be residential properties. And May is the perfect time to do that. So what we hope to do is this year we're in the planning stages, but actually next May we would have a local awards ceremony that we would hope that all the elected officials would be at, and we would recognize those citizens who put their time, their money, and their energy into restoring buildings in St. Cloud. So that's what's on the lineup for 2022. Another thing that we have going on, which is really wonderful, is that early on in creating the Historic Preservation Board and the Ordinance, St. Cloud did become a certified local government, which means that they are recognized by the state of Florida, the Division of Historical Resources, and there are certain benefits that go with being a certified local government. One great benefit is that you could pursue grant funding with no match required. And so we will be going after some grant funding on some projects for this year. We have an open grant cycle right now, so we've got grant applications that are going to be submitted on June 1. I just showed you all the trifold brochure. One thing we're also going to do is we're going to augment the information that's in the trifold brochure with a one-page upload to the website that we can expand to basically as many pages as you want, but these would be one-page informational sheets. So we may have a one-pager that talks about restoring your historic wood windows. We may have a one-pager that goes into just terms and definitions that citizens should know. We will have a one-pager that relates to the Plaque program and the awards program. So as Historic Preservation Board builds their library of historic preservation material that they want their citizens to know, all of that will be available on the website. And the back of the overview brochure has a QR code that will lead you to the page that all those documents will live. Okay. That's all I had in the presentation. I just want to make sure that I didn't have any. Of course, if I'm not looking at my notes, I do forget this. We do have a meeting scheduled for May 9th to discuss the tax incentive program as well as public art. So I know there's an objective with the council to have a public art program, and so that's something that we will be discussing in May 9th because we definitely want to have coordination with, obviously a lot of that public art is going to be targeted for the downtown, and that's where your downtown historic district is. The other thing that I want to announce and urge anybody to come out for is that we have a meeting scheduled, the Historic Preservation Board meeting for June 14th. And that is actually the meeting where we have representatives from the State Historic Preservation Office who are coming to St. Cloud to discuss what's currently in process, which is an application for St. Cloud to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It's a very big deal for a community to be listed on the National Register, and that's in process right now. So we'll have a public meeting that HPB will lead on June 14th, and hopefully, if all goes well, and we have support across the board, that application for the National Register will be reviewed by the State National Register Review Board sometime in August. The goal is to get this on the August meeting. So there is a chance that on top of all these objectives that HPB has, that by the end of the year, they'll be well on the path to being designated to the National Register. And so if that does happen, the designation would be in sometime in 2023. That's all I have, but I'll take any questions from the council.
Great, thank you so much. Councilmember Askew.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. I have some questions just because some things that are going on, and I brought it up in one of the meetings that we really do need to help some of these folks that buy these houses and they get stuck on trying to get it fixed up. So it's a breath of fresh air that you guys are looking into that and trying to find something that they can hold on to and maybe try to tackle the project. Because what I'm finding out is they don't want to tackle the project because they don't know what to do or it's too costly. So some kind of incentive that we can give them would be fantastic. The other question I had, because I'm sure you dealt with it in Sanford, I just watched two historical buildings get demoed in the downtown. One was on 12th Street and the other one was on 10th Street, right across from the fire station. The one on 10th Street I actually walked through. I'm not sure why I got demoed, but what is the normal process of a demo? Does it come in front of you as the historical board, or is it just a willy-nilly, I'm going to demo the... I know there's a lot of paperwork that doesn't have to be done if the building's not worth $75,000 or $70,000. I'm not sure where that's at, but what's a normal process and when you're going to demo a building? And then I'll give you the second part of the question is, when that building's demoed, what can go back on there? After reading the ordinance, it sounds like it has to be something that's similar to what was there before. So if you can clarify that, that would be fantastic.
Sure. So I'll clarify this just by stating to you all that one of my big concerns as a preservation professional and coming to St. Cloud is the earliest structures that you have in your town, the 1909 buildings from the founding of your town, and there's only a few of them. Between 1909 and 1915, those structures, we're talking about maybe a dozen or so, those are the ones that are really small square footage, because when you think about how St. Cloud was founded, it was a veterans colony for retired veterans. So they weren't building these grand houses. They were building small 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses, and in some instances, 1-bedroom, 1-bath houses. Most people don't want to live in a 700 or 800 square foot house. So I'm concerned about those properties just because they're really great properties from a heritage tourism perspective. If they get rehabbed, those are the truly authentic properties that go from your town's founding. So they could be fantastic, but right now, unfortunately, a lot of them are clad like in aluminum siding or the porch has been enclosed, so you can't really tell that there's actually an authentic historic building beneath there. Those buildings, in my opinion, are being targeted by people who want to invest in St. Cloud and say, oh, we could get this for a steal, because it's just, and I've heard this word thrown out, and I get very upset when I hear it, but I've heard them referred to as shacks. To me, they're your jewels. And so we do have this issue that I've been talking to the board and to staff about how we can combat this. Now, to answer your specific question about the process for a demo application gets submitted to the city. It does have to go to the Historic Preservation Board. In the instance of the 10th Street property, this one is very unfortunate because the property owners came in and did interior demo work of gutting the building. I don't think that they really knew what they were doing. So in the process of doing that, they actually structurally compromised the building. So we did talk about requiring that property to be brought back into compliance, but the building official went into the property and it was his determination it had to come down. So that's what happened with that one. On the other one on 12th Street, that one was actually a direction from code enforcement prior to me coming on board with the city, where there was a lot of problems at that property and they had major fines. And in order to, I think, well, I'm not sure if it was a total waiver of the fine or a decrease of the fine, but in order to do so, the requirement from the city was actually demo of that property. So we need to make sure that going forward, things like code enforcement are talking to building or talking to planning and all of that, so we don't have that situation again. But we've got others outside the district. So, the district, we have an ordinance. I'm talking to a gentleman right now who's on 14th Street who wants to demo his property. So one of the things we're looking at is, if it's outside the historic district, there's not a lot of control you have over that. But can we do things like salvage of building materials or put one property owner in touch with another property owner who may not need those historic building materials? It is not the same as saving a historic building, obviously. But like I said, outside the district, you're very limited on the kind of control that you have. So we're trying to look at different strategies that we could protect as much as possible. One of the things with the small matching grant is 2020, you all had a comprehensive survey of your downtown. That was a survey and inventory. And one of the grant applications that's going forward to the state for this grant cycle is to survey another area. Survey and inventory lay the groundwork for creation of future historic districts. So that's being looked at. So hopefully, the historic districts will expand and more of your historic resources will be protected.
Thank you.
Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. I like that materials idea of if someone is going to take something down or replace it, putting it in an area. I think they did, do that with historic bricks in roads, and I think it's good for the construction materials as well. Because the building that just got redone by the CRA, the tin roof that was there, ended up getting pitched when I think it could have been salvaged and something could have been done with it. So, but do we have, if there's only a handful of those buildings that are you said 1909 to 1915, I mean, is that something that we can target some of these property owners? And I don't believe in holding them hostage of you have to keep that building there and, the property's kind of locked in with that. Relocate them to another site and we can spend money to rehab it or whatever we have to do on the CRA or historic preservation side. Like if we have a very targeted number of properties we can look at, see which ones might make sense, work with the property owners. If it's something that they kind of want it gone anyway, we can try to relocate and do something nice with.
So relocation isn't great preservation practice, but of course it saves buildings. So usually you don't want to proactively work on relocating buildings, but what you do want to do is proactively work with the property owner to actually have them envision what that property could be. And so that's where I've been having a lot of conversations with economic development and the deputy city manager. And I keep saying you all need like 2 or 3 excellent rehabs of these buildings before everybody comes running to St. Cloud and wants to do those. Because, I mean, if you go to St. Augustine, you have commercial businesses that are running out of 700 square foot buildings, and their draw is the fact that they're the authentic buildings. So, it obviously could be done, but we just need a concerted effort with everybody working together to try to achieve that. In addition, some of these buildings are in your core, your CBD1, CBD2 zoning. So there's some conflicts in the underlying zoning right now that we're trying to work through. So that way it doesn't seem like that's the best case scenario to demo the building. It's more the best case scenarios to rehab the building. So those are the things that we're working through right now.
Okay, perfect. I just don't like it when the only thing you can do with that property is keep that existing structure. If they want to do something else, then if we can relocate it or deal with it some other way, I think that'd be great.
Great. Any other questions or comments? We do have one request to speak from the audience. Ms. Tony Jones, do you want to come up and say something?
I'm going to invite Ms. Paula Stark to come up and stand by me because I may get questions that I can't answer, but she always can. My name is Tony Jones, and I'm here tonight speaking as a member of the Historic Preservation Board. And I'm going to, since I have just 2 minutes and 55 seconds, I'm going to try to be very limited in my comments. I've been on the board since its inception, and our board has functioned much differently since Ms. Dalton has came on board. She is incredibly focused. She's a professional planner. She understands historic preservation. She got all of us to focus. And we've had the ordinances and we've had the goals and objectives, but we needed help putting feet on them and getting them to march. And she's the general. She got us moving. She got us moving from a meeting every 2 months to a meeting every month. And in addition to that, having a work session before every meeting every month. And she came with an agenda of ideas of what we should be working on, so we didn't have to be imagining we knew what our general goals were, but she made it operational. And if you look at that brochure and it looks just like a nice brochure to you, that was a lot of work, because she had to get us to focus, to fine-tune the content, and then she had to get it put together. So that one document alone took her a lot of time. And so our life has been so much different since she arrived. I have worked in planning for over 25 years. And this is the first time since I've been in St. Cloud that I've had the privilege of working with this caliber of a planner. Please do not take her away from us. Please, because I'll be crying. Be doing worse than that. Mr. Askew has heard me whine before. And also, there are some other things I wanted to mention. There are some grants that are available out there through Main Street that she may not have mentioned, that Ms. Stark could elaborate on. And I also want to mention, your Historic Preservation Board members had to attend a lot of education.
You can finish. Keep going.
Thank you. I thought it was my pacemaker going off. I'm sorry. It's never gone off before, and I thought that's what it was.
That's it.
We had to take a lot of education before St. Cloud could become a certified local government. They just didn't hand that out to you all because they thought you were a fine city council and a fine city. Our board members all had to attend and be certified that we attended, I think it was at least 8 hours of education. And they watched us watch these videos in this room. And then we had ethics education that the attorney oversaw us doing, if I'm correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and so we have to have a lot of education. And for other programs, so this being a certified local government wasn't just a rubber stamp. We had to go to school. Do you have anything extra that I forgot?
I think there's a thing I need to say.
But I got to tell you, do not take Miss Dalton away from us. We're just starting to get out of first gear.
Well, thank you so much. I completely agree with you. She's done a fantastic job, and I know it's hard. Sometimes we all have a lot of ideas, and I know it's hard to actually get a program that's functioning and working and moving forward.
And the only thing I would request, sometime when you all have the time, which is never, but it would be great, maybe sometime during the month of May, which is Historic Preservation Month, if the City Council and the Historic Preservation Board could have a short work session together where we could all sit down and chat.
That sounds like a great idea.
And we could just talk about historic preservation. I'll tell you how important it is. We have a new comprehensive plan coming up, and we need to start thinking about it, especially in connection with that upcoming plan. Enough said. Thank you
Great.
for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Okay.
She needed a lot of help.
Okay. So the next item of business is citizens forum. Any person who desires to comment on any item not on this agenda is provided this opportunity to address the city council. Each person is required to complete a sign-in form to be provided to the presiding officer prior to or as soon as practical thereafter. The person addresses the council. So I have one request to address the city council. It's Miss Jacqueline Stevens Odom. Please provide your name and address for the record.
Good evening, thanks for hearing me. My name is Jacqueline Stevens Odom. My address is 617 Bivens Street in St. Cloud, Florida. I've been coming here off and on to the city council and talked to several department heads since 2013. I began coming here because of the flooding from Hopkins Park when the city of St. Cloud added sheds and raised bed gardening. Doing the photos?
Grab 'em.
That is the sheds, that's Hopkins Park. The water is my backyard. Later, they came and created a trench to go back there. By the time that was corrected, my home and property was damaged. Now, my new problem is City Councilman Donnie Schroyer came to our neighborhood, bought the property directly across the street from my home because he was the only one that was able to get the liens forgiven. Built a home on that property, paved the driveway, no culvert underneath the driveway, so the water comes straight over to my property. When I had the drainage from my rear, the council, the city, everybody, I have names, I don't have time to do that, acknowledged the fact that there was no drainage on Bivens Street. So once that house was built, to us, it's like the house on the hill. There's no place for the water to go but down because the house is, and I know it's legal because it's on the new building code, but it's sitting in the middle of an older neighborhood. So it's sitting there and the water has to go somewhere, so we're getting flooded out. So twice. I've been flooded out from the rear, and now I'm getting flooded out from the front. Yes, ma'am, thank you. That is the ditch in front of my property when we get torrential rains. I'm going to add something. 2 weeks ago, City of St. Cloud came to River Road, which is, Bivens Street is off of River Road. So when they clean out the drainage on River, it's going to help that water make it to River Road. But the issue is there is no actual drainage on Bivens. And we've been communicating about that for a very long time. And I keep coming back to council because over the years, when water sits around properties on septics, there's damage. There's damage to the home, there's damage to the septic, there's damage to the drain field. And I have been living with this since 2013, and I have not gotten any satisfaction. It's just a mess. It's like I said, I thank you all for coming and cleaning out the ditches on Bivens Street, which is where those streets are supposed to drain to, but they need an avenue to drain. And it's very hard, and when Mr. Schroyer decided to build that home, before he paved the driveway, I asked him if there was going to be a culvert underneath that driveway. Verbally, he said yes. The next thing I knew, it was paved, no culvert. So that's an additional injury, I guess, to my property because now I'm getting water from the front of the property. I want to make you all aware of this because I really need help. because having your property flooded every time we get torrential rains, I live in an absolute mess. It impacts water is very dangerous. It's as dangerous as fire. When it sits around your property, it compromises your foundation, it compromises everything. And I would like to thank, at the end of my speech, I would like to thank Mr. Keith Trace for coming to our meeting and listening to us. And I want to offer appreciation where it's due. Thank you all for cleaning the ditches on River. But we do need help with drainage down there. We really do. Thank you.
City Manager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. First off, Ms. Odom, thank you for the nice phone call a couple weeks ago. Our Public Works team was out there cleaning up that ditches. In discussion with the Public Works Director and our Superintendent, they're going to be putting in some subsurface drainage along Bibbins in the next couple months, Don. Yeah, we'll do that. So we're going to see how that works. And again, as part of that Hopkins Park Master Plan, I've given direction. Let's look at the drainage in the area and see how we can fix that problem for a long-term solution.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. All right, next up on the agenda is the consent agenda. This portion of tonight's meeting is on the consent agenda, which contains items that have been determined to be routine and non-controversial. If anyone in the audience wishes to address a particular item on the consent agenda, now is the opportunity for you to do so. Additionally, if staff or members of City Council wish to speak on a consent item, they have the same opportunity. So first, I'm going to ask if there's any items that the council would like to pull for discussion. Okay, well, I have, I have two, item C and item K. Okay. So I think the clerk needs to read this first, right? Item C? Or no, I can just discuss it? So item number C, it has on here for the city manager to negotiate an agreement. This is a grant-funded project for Esprit Pond Improvement Repair. I'd like to add language similar to what we did on the last city council meeting for the city manager to sign the negotiated document once it gets all through with it, so it doesn't have to come back to city council to expedite. I also would like to add that if it's not in the previous approvals, but to include in this one, for the city manager to have authority to sign any documents associated with the grant so that they don't have to come back and try to get on the, you know, I do a lot of these grants and there's always some piece of paper that has to get signed, and if it has to come back to council, it just further delays things. So I'd like to, I guess, make a motion to add those two conditions to item number C.
Second.
Great. Do we have any public comment on this?
Well, and I'm fine with that. I mean, is that something we can add to all these moving forward, just to where
I would like to. I mean, that's when I saw it on here again. I was
Just
like,
kind of looking at Dan of, is that
Well,
possible?
we will take that into account. There may be some instances when we can't, and of course, we won't do it then, but we will use as a general rule that would be the direction of the city council for future items. So when we can, we will. If not,
great.
we won't.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? Okay. Hearing and seeing none. So, do we need to take a vote on C
Yeah.
separately?
Yeah, you just had a motion on that one particular item, so.
Okay.
So we need a vote on that.
So, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, and item number K, this is another application coming in to place fill on property within the city of St. Cloud. I've been having issues with all of these because of the trees that are getting removed. This particular one, it said 418 trees are going to be removed from this property. It says there's 3,694 inches diameter breast height of trees on this property, and they're going to preserve a couple and then add a couple and end up with 620, which meets the city ordinance. I did reach out to staff, and I just don't think this is sufficient. And I think there needs to be possibly a way to look at it, not just as a one size fits all, because this property has so many trees and it's got a lot of oaks on it. I don't think it's the same as if you go and develop pasture that has 2 trees on it, and then they do 60 inches per acre. Okay, that's fine, but when you've got, almost 4,000 inches of trees on this property, and then we end up with 620, I just don't personally think it's sufficient. So I want to vote on this separately, and I know this meets like the city standard, but to me, I think there needs to be something more different, better. I know the deputy city manager has said that a consultant is looking into this. I didn't hear back what the timeline was on that. But I just wanted to vote on this separately.
Want to take public comment?
Councilmember Askew.
I guess I got to ask the question, is there any legal ramifications from basically picking on this particular development?
I've been doing it on all of them.
Well, now there isn't any pending right now. I mean, it depends what we're talking about. I think you probably, if the rest of the council has similar concerns to the deputy mayor's concerns, it may be worth having some discussion about what the direction of the city council is going to be with regard to this particular portion of the city code that allows for this, whether the standards need to be changed or whether certain things need to be addressed to do that. And we would just need some direction about that, and then we can decide how we deal with this one particular application. I don't know if staff has any response to some of the issues that the deputy mayor has brought up. So.
Veronica Miller, Deputy City Manager. Excuse me. The only addition that I have is that, like the Deputy Mayor mentioned, we are working with Osceola Engineering. They are working on updating our land development code. They did have a workshop with the City Council where I think you gave them direction to increase the tree canopy as well as add native landscaping. So we just completed one of the tasks in that scope, which was for him to do a training with staff, and we will continue to push forward regarding the current property. Any direction that you want to provide to us, we can make sure. I think the applicant's here if you wanted to talk through some of those. City arborist did look at the site. He did say the majority of the trees on site were sand pines, which there are oaks, like Deputy Mayor did mention also. We do have a report from him. I think that was sent to the council also. Thank you.
So when I asked the question in my agenda review, I was told that it's not unusual for communities to do 180 inches to the acre, and we're at 60, just as information to the rest of you guys. Councilmember Trace?
Thank you. So the last time we talked about this was on something over by the post office, and it was the only reason they were coming to us because they had a conditional use application. So the same thing with this one. They're just asking for early work permit. That's why it's coming in front of us. Is that the purpose of the application? Like if they weren't asking for an early work permit, this wouldn't come at all. It's a commercial property, commercial zoning. It would just be developed. So there's kind of a break in the process of if they weren't asking for anything special, it would never come to us. So I think we have to fix the code if you want to change the
Correct.
code. Yeah.
Yeah,
But like just picking on them because it came from.
And I'm not picking on anyone.
Oh, sorry.
I brought it up when they came by the post office, and I brought it up when it came off of Lake Lizzie, and I'm bringing it up on this one. I'm not picking on anyone.
But looking at this one, like they were all 6-inch. I mean, it was kind of scrubby instead of like historic oak that, yes, should be dealt with differently than that other site by the post office is way different in my mind than this one. But I'm fine looking into changing the land development code when it comes to tree regulations, but we have to get an analysis of what other people have, how it works, how it doesn't, instead of just one-off decisions about this.
Councilmember Askew.
Yeah, you brought up a valid point. When you start talking about cattle land where there's nothing on there, and you're talking about a tree canopy, say like Macy Island Road or all of those places where those are beautiful, and then next thing you know, you drive down the road and it's just completely wiped out. It's out of our hands. It doesn't even come in front of us. So yeah, I would love to come up with something, incredible staff. I'm sure they can, and consultants or whoever we need to do to get it done. Thanks for bringing it up.
City Manager?
I was just going to say, what I've got from the council is we'll do some research, come back with some recommendations. Like I said, our consultant's already working on that. We'll mention what you guys would like to see and see what best practices are and come back with some recommendations.
Awesome, thank you.
Mr. Manzares?
And just to remind you, have an item before you. The applicant is here, so they need to be given an opportunity to address some of the concerns that have been expressed with regard to their particular request.
Sure. Would the applicant like to say anything? I don't know who the applicant is, so I don't know. Oh, there he
There
goes.
Good afternoon. Carlos Barrero, Kimberly Horn. We're the applicant. Sorry, our address is 189 South Orange Avenue, Suite 1000, Orlando, Florida, 32801. We are the applicant, and we are working with RRB Partners to develop this property. I've heard the different recommendations and different suggestions. If you have any other questions for me that I can address, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Are there any other public comment?
Well, I guess the question is now, at this point, it appears like the council's not really ready to vote on this particular application. So is there an opportunity for you to take some of those suggestions and maybe rework the application and bring it back?
So I would like to comment on that. We, for this particular site, as Mr. Trace mentioned, we're coming in for an early works permit. It's kind of the only reason that it's coming to City Council. We're also working on getting a site development plan approved, which is kind of on hold right now as we annex a portion of the adjacent lot into the property. But once that came in, we would have done this and it wouldn't have come to City Council. We understand staff's concern and council's concern for having the trees saved. I did look heavily into this myself and people I work with in my office. We work with the landscape architect who is in our office as well. We have a certified arborist in our office. Our goal was to preserve as many trees as we could on this development. This development went through a conditional use application before and it has a conditional use permit. So council has seen the proposed site plan for this site before. We are saving some trees on the southwest corner of the site, some along the south border of the site, and then as well where we have the proposed pond, there is an area that trees are being saved and they are being kept there, kind of more of an amenity feature. The rest of the site, we went back and forth on adjusting grades and fixing grades and moving parking areas and all that kind of stuff to try to keep trees. Unfortunately, we can't always keep every tree that we want to, so we kept as many as we could, given the site situation and the development program. Like you mentioned, there is 4,000 or 3,649 inches to be removed. We are meeting code by what we're replacing, and we're trying to save as many as we can here.
All right, well, I pulled this as a separate vote if council wants to move forward with a vote on it. Or we can ask them to go back to take a look at their application. The concern I have is just the fact that their site plan isn't done, but they want to fill the site and take all the trees out. I mean, that's kind of backwards logic to me. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-101R.
I'll second that.
All right, a motion by Councilmember Trace, a second by Urban. City Clerk?
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Councilmember Urban,
Aye.
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
No.
Motion carries 3-1.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll return to the remainder of the consent agenda. Is there anyone who wants to speak on this? Seeing and hearing none, I'll entertain a motion or comment by council.
Motion to approve the remaining consent agenda?
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Trace, a second by Councilmember Askew. City Clerk?
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
This brings us to our next item in the public hearing section. City Clerk, could you read item number 1 into the record?
Final reading for ordinance number 2022-26, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending Chapter 36, Solid Waste, Article 2, Collection and Disposal, authorizing and creating a requirement for a franchise for private entities to provide roll-off containers for the collection of Class 4 solid waste by amending and renumbering Sections 36 through 46, enforcement, and adding Section 36 through 47, franchise required, Sections 36 through 48, applications, Sections 36 through 49, operating requirements, Sections 36 through 50, assignment, Sections 36 through 51, bankruptcy and insolvency, Sections 36 through 52, franchise considerations, Sections 36 through 53, franchise agreement required, Section 36 through 55, enforcement, and Section 36 through 56, appeals, and providing for subrogability, conflict, administrative correction, codification, and providing an effective date.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Don Edwards, Public Works Director. This ordinance establishes the framework for a solid waste franchise fee for the City of St. Cloud for private solid waste companies that sell their services using roll-off containers and dumpsters for shorter-term uses. Mainly impacts commercial solid waste pickup, open-top roll-off containers at construction sites. City of Kissimmee and Osceola County already have similar franchise agreements in place. Franchisee will apply to provide services in the City of St. Cloud. Applicants will pay 15% of gross revenue to the City of St. Cloud as part of this agreement, which will provide additional revenue to help minimize future collection rate increases, assist with equipment replacement program, and help minimize solid waste overtime costs. Establishes enforcement policies through the code enforcement process, does not apply to commercial dumpsters, will not apply to small construction companies that bring construction and demolition debris directly to the transfer station. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. We don't have an applicant on this.
City's
do we?
the city's
It's
the
the
applicant.
city, right? Okay. So is there any comment from the audience? Seeing and hearing none. City Council, do you have any comments, or I'll entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So motion by Councilmember Askew, second by Councilmember Trace. City Clerk?
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay. So items 2, 3, and 4 can be read together.
First reading for ordinance number 2022-23, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, to annex into the City of St. Cloud approximately 20.31 acres identified as Sunbrook Phase 5, FKA Baton Grove, located north of Nova Road, east of Starline Drive, and south of Jones Road, in accordance with the voluntary annexation provision of Chapter 171.044 Florida statutes. First reading for ordinance number 2022-24, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a future land use designation of LDR, low-density residential, to approximately 20.31 acres identified as Sunbrook Phase 5, FKA Baton Grove, located north of Nova Road, east of Starline Drive, and south of Jones Road, providing for amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, Filing of the Planning Commission, recommendation and proof of publication, suburbility, and effective date. First reading for ordinance number 2022-25, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a zoning district of PUD plan unit development compatible with a low-density residential future land use designation change adopted by ordinance number 2022-24 for approximately 20.31 acres identified as Sunbrook Phase 5, FKA Baton Grove, located north of Nova Road, east of Starline Drive, and south of Jones Road, providing for entering the designation on the official Sony map, providing for approval of the preliminary final master plan, filing of the Planning Commission, recommendation and proof of publication, suburbility, and effective date.
Thank you. Erin Stark, Transportation Manager. The case before you tonight is Sunbrook Phase 5. The first one is voluntary annexation. It's on a property 20.31 acres in size. It's contiguous and reasonably compact. It's adjacent to the city limits on the south and the west now that we own the ranch property and have annexed that. The existing county future land use designation is low-density residential, which allows up to 8 units per acre, and the existing county zoning is agricultural development and conservation. The strategic plan goal, this proposal meets the intent for growth management. And on October 5th, 2021, staff met with DRC and recommended approval of Ordinance 2022-23. Planning Commission made the similar recommendation on May 26th, 2022, and which hasn't happened yet, so I hope that date is slightly wrong. I'm looking for my director who's not sitting back there. We'll have to correct that record in just a second. I think it is probably April 26th. But City Council, the requested action is approval of Ordinance 2022-23. The comprehensive plan amendment application is a proposal to go from low-density residential, which allows up to 8 dwelling units per acre in the county, to the low-density residential future land use designation in the city, which allows up to 4 dwelling units per acre. It's compatible with the surrounding area, and there are no adverse impacts on city facilities. It meets the growth management strategic plan goal. And again, on October 5th, staff recommended approval of Ordinance 2022-03. We've really got to get that date right for the Planning Commission recommendation. And the City Council requested action is approval of Ordinance 2022 well, excuse me, I didn't make this PowerPoint, but the correct item, Claudia, help me out here. The correct ordinance number for this case is one of those 2 that are on the screen. Sorry, flipping.
2022-26.
Okay, well, thank you.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry.
2022.
I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm pinch hitting tonight. And the PUD zoning, just to correct the record, I heard Claudia read into the record that this is a combined preliminary and final master plan. This project is not. It's only a preliminary master plan, which is why it has less detail. So we will correct that by the time in the ordinance this is heard the second time. This case is PUD 21-00010 and Ordinance 2022-25. Again, you know the land use designations. The proposed zoning is a residential PUD. It's compatible with the surrounding area, and there are no impacts on city facilities. This meets the strategic plan goal for growth management. Here's a couple of slides out of the preliminary master plan. You can't see all the site data there, but they've provided for parking, open space, and what you can't tell much of on the screen at this scale is that this is the 5th phase of an existing subdivision that was developed through the county and was not contiguous to city limits when those subdivision plans were approved, but this property is an added phase of that subdivision, which is contiguous to city limits, which is why they've come through the city process for development approvals. They're sharing a lot of their amenities with the rest of the subdivision. They have HOA decks that allow for that and always predicted that expansion of a subdivision. And you'll see the existing 5th phase. It's compatible with the size, architecture, and pricing structure of the existing Sunbrook homes. Existing amenities will be available to residents in the new development. This will be one single phase for this piece that is under city jurisdiction, and it'll be incorporated into that existing HOA. It's 20.31 acres in size. The residential acres are 10.82. That's once you take out all the roads and ponds and everything like that. The total dwelling units are 80, and the gross residential density is 3.94. The open space required is 4.06 acres, and they've exceeded that by a hair with 23% provided. A passive lakefront recreation park will be provided along the stormwater pond. They've done a great job with incorporating their trails and tying them into the rest of the subdivision as well. And staff recommends approval on April 1st. It went to DRC for Ordinance 2022-25. Planning Commission heard this item on a date that we will clarify in a moment. And staff is recommending approval of Ordinance 2022-25. If Melissa doesn't come back and give me that date soon.
I think our attorney's looking at the date.
I'm so sorry, Dan.
She's got it.
Okay.
Excuse me, Veronica Miller, Deputy City Manager. Melissa actually just told me that that was the correct date. Really? That is when they're going to hear it, and then the recommendation will be brought forward to the City Council.
Okay, so it hasn't gone to Planning and Zoning Commission yet. Final recommendation will come.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Veronica, for clarifying. We're hearing it out of order, as you've seen before, and by the time you hear this ordinance the second time, you will have the Planning Commission's recommendation.
Well, I see Mr. Adams came up here close to the podium. Do you have anything you want to say?
Just for the record, John Adams, R.J. Wooden and Associates, planners for the project, 316 Church Street, Kissimmee. We also have Tina Lee here from Ashton Woods, my client. We are in agreement with staff's recommendation. We're available to answer any questions you may have on any of the three items.
Okay, great. So let's tackle them one at a time. So is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on the first item, 2022-23? Okay, I'll bring it to council for comment and or motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Tracy, you've got a comment?
Well, there's a motion, so
Do we have a second?
I'll second for comment, I guess. So, and this was, I hate that this project's kind of getting wrapped up in this whole conversation, but my worry when we bought the ranch property and annexed it into the city is that the boundary is going to keep on moving up to Jones Road and beyond. And I just don't know where we believe the city boundaries should stop, because once this fifth phase comes into the city, like, you might as well annex the rest of that property and then the property west of it and just kind of keep on going from there. So kind of want some discussion around that.
I'd be happy to address that, Deputy Mayor, if you'd like. The only reason this application is in front of you is because of your joint planning agreement with the county. We're required to make application when we're adjacent. As far as where you want that to stop, you may have to look at your JPA and determine a different planning area for it to cover. But we certainly are in compliance with your existing JPA. The first 4 phases of Sunbrook do have an annexation encumbrance agreement to the property owners because of the water and sewer that you're servicing out there. It's your determination of where you want that to stop and how you want to adjust that JPA. But in the meantime, we would request that you consider this being in compliant with your JPA.
Yeah, and I understand your hands are tied, right?
Yes.
You're going through the motions that you have to. We've had this conversation for 3 years now, and we kind of haven't gotten to the end of it. Other question I had for staff during my agenda review was, there's some right-of-way along the west side that other property owners have either dedicated or it was old platted right-of-way. Is there plans for that to be paved at some point? Or what does the city and county code require for that?
Currently, the city's code, we annex the piece adjacent to this property and just north of this property, which is east of the ranch property when we annex the ranch. So we annex the annexation ordinance, any adjacent right-of-way, right? So that is under our jurisdiction, but it was a driveway to this property. So the parcels north of this did not abandon that right-of-way because it was being used for access to this piece, and until they had alternative access, it was still necessary. Reached out to the county in response to your inquiries and in the briefing, and I got feedback from one of three parties who would be someone who would chime in, and they mentioned that this corridor could be used for stormwater conveyance for Jones Road when it's widened. I guess they have, every corridor when they widen it has drainage issues, right? So they were kind of continuing a conversation, but the engineers in development review hadn't chimed in about whether or not that was necessary. So they're not sure that they won't need their piece. But my understanding is that their code does not require, our code requires if you're adjacent to right-of-way, you should improve it or abandon it. And the county's code requires that you improve it if you access it. So it's a little bit different. So they have not determined that they do not need it for that Jones Road, but they don't have any PD&E that says they do. So I think our code would require that this property either improve it or abandon it. So a solution for this piece, which is at the southern end of the whole corridor of right-of-way, should be that they should abandon the right-of-way and incorporate that possibly as open space when they go into PSP or subdivision construction plan, and then at Plaque they can manage that, and that would be additional area that would go partially to the ranch or entirely to this property.
Okay, and because there were even the phase before this had stub out to the west for connection to that paper right-of-way.
Mm-hmm.
This one also looks like it has two connection points to that paper right-of-way, so I don't know if abandoning it is the right thing either, but.
Yeah, and I think the county isn't sure that abandoning it is the right thing either. One of the things we wanted to be sure, because we knew this may be a more likely possibility, is that the right-of-way actually touch the property line to the west so that pedestrian connectivity into the ranch when the ranch master plan comes forward wouldn't be prohibited. So that was one thing in our review for multimodal connectivity that we thought was important, that the right-of-way touched so we could stub that out, but I don't think anyone envisioned that the road would go into the ranch, of course, or even down this right-of-way corridor. So I think we kind of still have some unknowns, and there's some advantages to kind of leaving it out there, which is fairly unusual.
Okay, I beg to differ on the potential for it to be used as a right-of-way corridor because this development, the previous phase of this development stubbed out to it, and then a different development to the west stubbed out to it. So
Okay.
I imagine someone's code forced that to happen. So for interconnectivity, but
Okay.
I'll let it be.
Well, I'm really hoping that they improve it then if we need it, but we don't have that improvement to the north and contiguous, so it would be tough to require at this time. Yeah. Great point.
Thank you. City Manager?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Chase, if you recall, this month we were going to have Metro Forecasting come in, and we've done our modeling for what does that JPA look like? And because we didn't have a quorum, that's pushed to the 19th. I actually spent about an hour on a call today with our consultant. And interestingly, Jones Road is that area that we're looking at, that delineation to the north. But I think, in that workshop, we need to really look at, those data before we start, manipulating the JPA, which we think there is some room to do that moving forward, but we'll be doing that on the 19th. So.
Yeah, because my worry is fire response times and a bunch of other stuff that major capital improvements we put in that we just got to work that out with the county of where we put it in, where they put it in.
And they're chomping at the bit too because they don't want to build a station. Then us, I think actually, like in Orange County, fire station sits
across the street
in Winter Garden. Yeah, so that's coming forward on the 19th.
Okay.
Awesome.
Great, thank you. So I have a motion and a second. If there's no more comment, we will call the roll.
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
4-0. Okay, so the next item up is 2022-24. Do you want to say anything to this? Okay, any public comment? None. I'll send it back to council for a motion and/or comments.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Askew. Second by me, I guess. And I'll call the roll.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, and the third and final companion item, 2022-25. Applicants here, if we have any comments. I don't think there's any public comment, and back up to City Council for comments and/or motion.
Motion to approve.
A motion by Councilmember Askew,
Second.
second by Councilmember Urban. City Clerk?
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please read item number 5 into the record.
Resolution number 2022-048R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending resolution number 2021-223R, which adopted the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget for the City of St. Cloud, finding the city manager has certified there are prior year fund balances and/or current revenues available in the budget for additional projects and programs in various funds not included in the original 2021-2022 budget, requiring the budget to be increased to include said additional fundings in the various funds, making supplemental appropriations within the funds.
Good evening, Wendy Colazzo, Finance Director. As per City Code Section 212, these are the amendments after an adoption of a budget. During the fiscal year, the manager certifies that there are any available appropriations that are in excess of those revenues, and they're those estimated in budget. The City Council, by this resolution, may make supplemental appropriations for the year up to the amount of those excesses. The City Manager has certified that these funds are available to appropriate funds. This budget amendment meets the city's strategic plan goal for financial sustainability. Walking through the first one, this is budget amendment number 3 for fiscal year 2021-2022. In the gas tax fund, a net increase of 0. The increase in revenues of $115,187 from interfund transfers, and a decrease in revenues in prior year fund balance in the same amount. This is due to the completion and closure of projects ST2101, which is the master plan paving, and ST2102, the Palomar Oaks roadway. Funding is being returned from the fund of the 300, the capital projects fund. In the Capital Projects Fund, the inverse, you'll see 0 net increase. This is an increase in expenditures from those intergovernmental transfers and decrease in expenditures for these following closed projects. The ST2101, as mentioned, the Master Plan Paving, $73,723. The ST2103, Friars Cove, $41,464. In the water fund, an increase of $1,240,000. This is an increase using prior year fund balance revenues, and an increase in the expenditure lines for water administration under current charges by $1,240,000 as mentioned, for a potential outstanding legal settlement. Likewise, in the sewer fund, an amount of $1,240,000, an increase from prior year fund balance revenues. This increase into the expenditures for wastewater administration under the same expenditure of other current charges by such amount of $1,240,000 for the same purpose of a potential outstanding legal settlement. Finally, in the motor pool fund, $400,000 an increase. This is an increase to revenue for outside repairs and an increase in expenditures in the inverse for the work order clearing account of the same amount, $400,000. To the account for those additional revenues and expenditures. Those are resulting from the increased outside repair cost. This is staff's recommendation to approve resolution number 2022-048R, and are requesting the action of City Council to approve such 2022-048R resolution, and this is budget amendment number 3.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the audience? Seeing and hearing none. City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just, as she was talking about the motor pool clearing fund, I wanted to let you know, when I became city manager almost 5 years ago, one of my ideas was to, how do we streamline that division? And I was told the other day by the Public Works Director that we've been able to purchase new vehicles and those maintenance costs are starting to go down. We're starting to see the vehicles being replaced on a schedule and they're PM'd and everything. So we're starting to see some cost savings there. So I just was proud of that, proud of our Public Works and our fleet team and our finance department being able to, remember we had problems with that fund initially and we've got that under control and we're really proud of that. So thank you. Just
Great
wanted to
job.
share that. Thank you.
You didn't even say Niner.
I did not.
Romeo.
Romeo.
Or growled.
Tango.
She does Niner, though, in there.
Yeah, no roaring today.
Okay, City Council, do you have any comments, or I'll entertain a motion?
Motion to approve?
A motion by Councilmember Askew,
Second.
second by Councilmember Trace. City Clerk?
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Councilmember Urban,
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, this brings us to our next item, council action section. Madam Clerk, would you please read council action item number 1 into the record?
Resolution number 2022-103R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, approving a water and wastewater agreement from Narcousie Trading Post LLC for Dairy Queen, a commercial development in the unincorporated area of Osceola County on the east side of Narcousie Road, west of Underwood Avenue, south of Jack Brack Road, and north of Jones Road, authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement and providing an effective date.
Good evening. I'm Cameron Crandall, Deputy Director of Environmental Utilities. This is a water and wastewater agreement for a commercial property, approximately 0.09 acres. It is on Narcousie Road, just north of Jones Road, south of Jack Brack. As you can see from this map, it is outside the city limits, thus for water and sewer service, it needs to come for City Council for an approval of the agreement. Water and wastewater capacity are available at this location. Like I said, serving the project requires city council approval. This is our typical commercial water and wastewater agreement. So it doesn't have the typical like square footage and air conditioners development standards, but it does have the development standard about the ADA sidewalks and crosswalks. Also, Marjorie Craig wanted me to send her regrets because she really loves Dairy Queen and wanted to be part of this. So we're requesting approval for this resolution, number 2022-103R.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Okay, do we have any public comments on this item? Seeing and hearing none, I'll bring it back to council for comments and/or motion.
Motion to approve?
Motion from Councilmember Askew,
Second, but I have a comment.
second from Councilmember Trace.
I know this isn't in our purview, but can you please work with the county to make sure that the drive-through doesn't loop around and block into Narcousie Road? Because the way the access is, like almost forcing access off of Underwood behind it, because the Dairy Queen's double stacked all the way around the building, and Culver's is like packed, so everyone loves ice cream. So just want to make sure that we don't have Narcousie Road blocked off by people trying to get into this.
Okay, we can reach out to the county to discuss that.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Urban,
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
I'll ask the clerk now to read council action item number 2 into the record.
Request City Council's approval of the Center Lake Ranch Phase N-1B preliminary subdivision plan.
Good evening, Erin Stark, Transportation Manager. The case before you tonight is the Center Lake Ranch Phase N-1B preliminary subdivision plan. The subject property is generally located north of Hartley Runyon Road and west of Hackney Road. The subject property is approximately 72.12 acres in size. It has a future land use designation of mixed use and a zoning district of mixed use as well. The applicant is requesting approval for a PSP to construct 304 residential units. 209 of those are detached and 95 are attached, to be constructed in 2 phases. The subject property is generally located at that place. The strategic plan goal that this meets is for growth management. A copy of one of the sheets of the preliminary subdivision plan is attached in the PowerPoint, and you all have received the entire preliminary subdivision plan. DRC staff recommended approval on April 15th, 2022. And we are recommending approval with conditions to satisfy a few outstanding plan review comments, which include revising sheet C 2.30 to indicate a minimum lot width and lot depth, to propose right-of-way vacation of any existing right-of-way approved prior to the approval of the subdivision plat. And, excuse me, I know that there were more conditions in your staff report, so I'm going to go ahead and read those now because I don't see them here on the slide. So give me just a sec to grab that staff report. And if you all will flip to your staff report, or if you need me to pass around my sheet, I can. The staff report conditions, there are a few outstanding plan review comments. The one from Public Works is that the PSP plans must be revised to show a 50-foot right-of-way cross-section improvement, which is at the northwest corner of the property along the northern property boundary there. And then the school district of Osceola County has some informational comments as well. And we recommend approval with those 3 conditions, the 2 on the slide, and the third one, which is that the plans must be revised to show the 50-foot cross-section improvements in the right-of-way on the outside of their property boundary.
Okay, great. I believe the applicant's here. Do you want to come up and say anything?
Good evening, council members. Mark Stelly, civil engineer with Polis and Bennett. I'm here with the applicant tonight, MI Homes. We've worked with staff to get here tonight. I appreciate them getting us on the agenda. We've reviewed the staff report and are in agreement with that and the conditions of approval. And if you have any other questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you. Is there any public comment? Hearing and seeing none. Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. One question, if you could pull up the master plan or the site plan or whatever. There's a road on the western boundary, Street A, that's next to the community center on the master plan. Is there intention for that to have roadway connections over to the community center?
Yes, there's an intention in the approved conceptual master plan and concept plan. This property has proposed, these alignments were very similar to what, or almost identical to what the concept plan called for, except this right-of-way is touching the western property line along the entire length. They haven't put in any 5-foot landscape buffer or anything that would prohibit any connectivity at any location. It may be aligned with the east-west road, but it really allows the most flexibility.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I figured is they don't know what they're doing over there yet, but I just wanted to make sure the intent was there for that to have connections in the future.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Great. Is there any other comment, or I'll entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Trace.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Askew. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
No.
Motion carries 3-1.
Okay, now we're to reports. City Attorney, do you have anything?
I do not have anything, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
City Manager?
I do. I have some very good news. I was notified last week that our procurement department has won the Florida Association of Public Procurement Officials Award of Excellence in Public Procurement for 2022. There was only one of 19 agencies to win this award, and it shows their commitment to a professional procurement department, using best practices and a high score on a rating of standardized criteria. So congratulations. They'll be receiving a presentation later on this month at the conference, and then I'll do a formal presentation to show you the trophy they got. So we're really proud of them. Both our finance and our procurement departments are getting those awards, and that shows the professionals and the staff I lead every day. So thank you.
Great job. Okay, Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. I received the letter from Commissioner Grebe, but I guess there was a public meeting about Kissimmee Park Road and some changes that the Turnpike Enterprise wants to make to kind of the access for essentially Kissimmee Park Road residents. I just wanted to know if we would be willing to put in a letter to the DOT as well for that, kind of in suggestion for changes to how that access is happening. I don't know if you guys saw that public meeting that was going on about that.
I don't know exactly what the letter said, so I'm not
I haven't either. I don't.
sure.
I just.
I mean, I'm open to it. I
Yeah.
just don't know exactly what we're asking for.
Yeah.
City Manager?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I have the fire chief address that? And it does affect the fire station and response. So we started receiving the public comment. We did compile those and forward those on to the Turnpike Authority for their, to understand the consternation that some of our citizens had. So I took the position that, it's a Turnpike issue and that, we were listening to our citizens. We just forwarded that on, but it does affect fire response. I'll have the fire chief talk about that.
Good evening, Jason Miller, Fire Chief. Going back in time, the history of that area, obviously, that we've run into many experienced problems with traffic offloading off the Turnpike, traffic stacking back onto the Turnpike at the Kissimmee Park Road interchange, as you know. We've been quite a few accidents over there, lots of near misses, just lots of frustrated drivers. Turnpike DOT approached us probably about 9-10 months ago about this idea of making both lanes coming over the bridge from Kissimmee Park Road towards Old Canoe Creek as turn-only lanes so they could get more traffic off the Turnpike, less stacking on the Turnpike, less chances of rear-end accidents on the Turnpike. As a result of that, they said they were closing northbound entry from Kissimmee Park to allow for that stacking to go all the way back across the bridge. The original intent of Turnpike DOT, sorry, the old FHP all the time out there, DOT was to create this bulbed U-turn in the middle of the curve there as it approaches the Turnpike. Knowing that we had a future fire station coming along in that area as far as being a rebuild, knowing that we had to move the driveway further south, we said, we have an intersection 250 feet down the road. Why don't you make the intersection wider? You can do your bulb out turnout south of our fire station. Doesn't affect our operations as far as being able to respond to calls. In the future, when you go to restore the intersection, you restore it to a driveway. That way it saves us a little money, and you leave the traffic light in place so that we can get out in non-emergency situations. They agreed to all that. Our opinion is it's safer to do a controlled U-turn, not in the middle of a curve. Realistically, it doesn't affect our traffic as far as response. The people it does affect are the residents of Kissimmee Park Road. They're going to have to come down, go over the overpass, do a U-turn there by the fire station, and then get back on head back south to get on the Turnpike to head north. With that said, they traffic engineered that bulbed out U-turn large enough that a semi could do a U-turn there, according to DOT. I know our fire trucks won't have a problem making a U-turn based off of the radius of the curbs. And in the future, that does allow us to have a turn lane to access future Fire Station 32 from where it's at now. My stance as far as the access location is we don't have an issue with it. It truly, at this point, does not appear to that it will have any effect on our response times. I know that there's been many an email that's gone around that says, it's going to affect our response times, but based on the fact that it's on a straightaway as opposed to in a curve, line of sight, which a lot of the engineers up there can know, makes it a whole lot better not to have it in the middle of a curve, number one. Number two, they've also taken into account, with our fire station being there when they do restore it, line of sight of the height of fire trucks versus residential cars, and they're taking all that into consideration. So from our standpoint, I have no objections to this. I feel it's a safer avenue. I'm not a big fan of, causing the impact to the residents of Kissimmee Park Road. But at the same time, when I weigh that, those are also the residents that are going to be sitting on the turnpike, potentially getting rear-ended by semis or other cars, waiting to get off the turnpike. So it's a double-edged sword. It's safer because you'll be able to get more cars off the turnpike, but you're inconveniencing some people for now until that Neptune Road or Nolte Road interchange is complete. So I know I made it clear as mud and didn't really take a side, but it doesn't affect me. At the end of the day, as far as I feel it's going to be safer, it could reduce call volume in that area because we do run those calls on the turnpike where people get in accidents out there. So,
Well, my thought process is when that overpass was reconstructed with Kissimmee Park Road and all that, the infrastructure and the head walls for a 4-lane overpass is there. Why don't they just build the bridge deck for those extra lanes and then just kind of finish that part of it?
it's outside my purview.
Yeah. So
I'm the St. Cloud Fire Chief, not
seems like
MDOT.
the easy solution was sought and found instead of kind of what makes sense.
Well,
holistically.
also, there are plans long-term to close that, because remember, they're going to realign all of Kissimmee Park Road as part of the Edgewater development out there. Kissimmee Park Road, the access point to the turnpike is not going to be on Kissimmee Park Road in the future, where Kissimmee Park Road is now, I should say.
Understood, but that bridge is still going to be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Just wanted to have that perspective. So.
Yeah, understood.
Okay. So where do we go from here?
I don't want to put words in Mr. Trey. I think he's requesting that we support Commissioner Greaves' letter and ask for them to look at this again, and can they come up with a better design? Is that?
Agreed.
Okay.
And have staff look at it too, because I mean, if it was just
Sure.
a conversation about fire and how that makes sense instead of, Public Works looking at it, or I just want to take another look at that project and make sure it makes sense for everyone.
Yeah, I'm up for
You good with
a
that?
second look.
All right. We'll take care of that.
Okay, is that it?
Yep.
Okay, Councilmember Askew.
I'm in support with this tree ordinance, some way of getting that fixed. I appreciate Deputy Mayor Matheny bringing that up. I didn't go with the vote on this case, but I think we really need to do something to protect these trees out there. Which brings up a point, because I got a phone call today that there was some thought about Tahokwa bringing a road through Macy Island. I don't know if anybody else has heard that, but I'm like, that cool little, we take our pictures and, down that road. So I know we saved it before, we pushed it 75 feet from the road to try to save that canopy. So I don't know what's going on there, but,
Mr. Urban, I know we'd talked.
Yeah, I talked to the city manager about this before the meeting, and I'd be concerned about losing that as well, so
Yeah.
I agree with you there.
So if I give you an update, Deputy Mayor, I've got one since earlier this afternoon. Currently, Melissa Dunklin and Ray Stengel, who is the Community Development Director for the county, are in discussions regarding what those connections look like between Tahokwa and Kindred. As you know, those are both adjacent to Macy Island Road. Initially, Tahokwa was approved to have 5 connections to Macy Island Road, and then in order to preserve the Oak Hammock, the west and east connection directly south of Cross Prairie was removed. Currently, staff is working to come up with a solution that would remove the other 2 connections and preserve the 70-foot buffer between Tahokwa Development, Macy Island Road, through a revision of the conceptual master plan. 2 framework roadway connections would remain, Cross Prairie Parkway and South Prairie Parkway. And again, we're still looking at this. Mr. Stengel is supposed to have a final determination by Monday back to us. So, and like I said, I got briefed on this right before the meeting, so I'm pinch hitting for Melissa. So if we get a question, I'll have to take it.
I agree 100% with this. I also would like to pile on a little bit. If we could get them to maybe do some additional plantings too, because it is a gorgeous area. When this came up, 2 years ago, when I called the city manager and I said, you have to go drive the road. Like me telling you, you have to go see it. It's like what my youth was growing up in St. Cloud. Every street looked like that. Like now we have one, left. But so, now with the way the development has happened, and we did get that 75-foot buffer, there's kind of some
bare spots in there. It'd be nice if they could plant some trees in there to kind of, to fill that in. The other concern I've heard was about making that connection, the one that's just popped up out of kind of nowhere from my perspective, was it's related to the school, and they're worried about the school stacking. So my comment will be, Tahoka needs to address and come up with a plan so that they have appropriate stacking inside their development. We don't need what we have off of, in Anthem Park.
Or Narcoossee.
Or Narcoossee, where Anthem Park, they're like just blocking everything. I mean, Tahoka needs to come up with a solution for that, not us. So I want to make sure, because I think they're coming in with another approval in the next month or something. But anyways, great point. Was that it?
That's it.
Councilmember Urban?
Yeah, I just, Councilmember Askew took what I was going to say as well, and I support both of you on that. The only other thing is, was mentioned earlier, maybe doing a workshop with the Historic Preservation Board, and I would definitely be in favor of doing that.
I don't know if we can get it in May.
Yeah, May might be a little
But
too.
maybe we can do it the next month. We'll look at the schedule. I think we were going to talk about.
Yeah, I was going to beg for Mayor Blackwell's time again because I forgot something.
No go-backsies.
Well, and do we want to just try to advertise so we can attend the June 14th meeting, or try to do
Is
something
that the
then?
one? I didn't write that down. Is that when she's working on the designation?
Yeah.
I would
June
love to
14th,
do that.
yeah.
I mean, the meeting with the Historic Preservation Board, could we just do something like after work one day and not pile it onto a workshop, but just do something kind
That
of,
would work better, ma'am.
do it at 5:30 or something so then we're not all leaving work and trying to hit that. That would be great.
Yep, that's all I have, thanks.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
And if I could just address two items.
Oh,
One
now
that-
two.
I know, they both I forgot, I apologize.
Pick your best one.
Oh.
Well, and you just reminded, the first one is July 1st is coming, you have to do your annual ethics training. We were looking at doing it June 14th, I think, right? That's the date we sort of set aside, we need to get it done.
It's the third Thursday.
I'm sorry?
It would be the third Thursday of June.
Or whatever
I
date,
don't have a
okay.
calendar.
So the current plan is to do it all in one night, let's start mid-late afternoon to get it done and do it all one, and we just want to make sure that's okay with the
Sure.
council.
That's our June workshop date, right?
Yes.
Yes, correct,
16th.
okay.
Okay.
The other item is, and I apologize, I should have brought this up, I just want to make sure it's clear on the record that the item that you took vote on, the last council action item with regard to the Center Lake piece, that included the conditions that were presented by staff. It wasn't clearly stated in the
My bad,
motion.
yeah.
It's all right, I should have caught it earlier, but we understood that. That was how the item was presented by staff, and the applicant agreed to it, so that's how we got it. So, okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Well, first, I want to wish Mayor Blackwell speedy recovery. I know he missed being here tonight with us. And also to wish a happy 50th birthday to our new police chief. It was a couple days ago. I saw he had quite a celebration and, flair in his office and things like that. And this now brings us to our information and reports section. Thursday, May 12th, we'll have a city council meeting at 6:30 in City Hall. Thursday, May 19th, we'll have a city council workshop at 3. Thursday, May 26th, we'll have a city council meeting at 6:30 in City Hall. Monday, May 30th, city offices will be closed in observance of Memorial Day holiday. And the 3 following proclamations have been issued. A proclamation in recognition of Water Safety Month, a proclamation in recognition of National Small Business Week, and a proclamation in recognition of National Day of Prayer. And just so everyone is aware, we have a warrant list number 10 available for review. And with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
So how do you want to